So as always, we'll post the video on YouTube after the session. This way you guys can go back, rewatch everything. We're going to cover our swing trading analysis for the week. We just posted everything inside of Telegram and Discord. I'm going to go ahead and just pull it up so you guys can see.
What's up, Oscar? How's it going, man?
What's up, dude? We got this. All right, so you guys should see my screen now. All right, so we post all of our analysis inside of Telegram for you to go in and review. If you just scroll up, this is swing trading analysis. So this week we'll be focusing on pretty much the 4 hour time frame and up. That's what we do every single week on these sessions. Inside of the program, we teach two different strategies: the intraday strategy, which we go over on the live sessions with the members during the week, and then the swing strategy. So you guys are going to get a glimpse into the swing strategy. So we post in Telegram and Discord as well for people that are still in there. We are mainly posted in Telegram these days, though. I see we got Sumi in here. Welcome to the chat, Sumi.
Some new people as well. So, guys, when we go into the analysis, we'll kind of break down the whole method. I'll explain everything, and you guys will pretty much understand how we're going about this. But essentially, this is a Sunday market blitz. So, as Angelo just showed you guys, we go through all these analysis ahead of time. Over the weekend when the market's closed, we'll present it to you guys, and it's pretty much analyzing the week ahead, right? So it's focused on the 4 hour time frame, daily, 4 hour, depending on what price action is doing. And that's very relative to what's going to happen this week. So you'll notice these are active charts, which means you can play them forward at any point during the week and see how they're playing out. And we always choose in the analysis the most conservative ways that it could play out. So you'll see very clearly if that analysis is accurate or if it's inaccurate. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to start off sharing some pairs. We're going to start off here on DXY, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. So let's jump to the live chart. Okay, this is gold, not DXY. We'll get to that. That's one of the last ones we'll get to. So we're going to start off on DXY, and this is just essentially the dollar index. So we're not actually trading this. We're more or less using this as an indicator, using this as a gauge for the week ahead, because as we know, the market is very influenced by the dollar. It makes up for 80% of all trade. It's considered the reserve currency of the world. So when you see a lot of volume coming out of the dollar, you'll notice a lot of reaction on other pairs. Okay, so we like to be aware of that. We don't really want to be caught off guard. If something's happening, we're going to catch it because we're analyzing it. Okay, right? It makes sense. So the first thing we're going to do when breaking down these charts is we're going to grab sentiments. We're going to grab the trend from this daily time frame because I want to see where price action's been. I want to see the history of where we've been in the last few months or so and how that kind of adds up to where we could potentially go now. All right, again, trend trading, we're trying to grab the trend, and we're going to try and drop time frames and come up with two scenarios, both bullish, one with the trend, and then the opposite, which is more of a transition. But we'll get to that in a second. So first off, let's identify the trend here. Overall, we've been bearish for a while, right? We saw the dollar falling off quite a bit. We broke through this weekly. We tanked real hard all the way down to a new level right near our monthly. We wicked lower right around 91.5 area, pulled back into some consolidation, and then blew through that level. So we actually dropped through the 91.5 monthly level, broke lower, got some lower highs, consolidated in this area for a little bit, made some attempts to the upside, pulled back through, and now we're breaking to the upside again. So essentially, we've confirmed this down here, 90 flat, as major support. We've seen a lot of reaction there before. And now this monthly level is getting broken. So now we're above the monthly level. So we're bullish, right? We're looking for higher lows. We're looking to continue with this trend to reach new resistance levels. So that's all we're doing here on the daily. We're bullish. Let's go to the 4 hour now, get a closer look and see what's going on. So this is the time frame that's really going to pertain to the week. This is where you're going to see, you're going to be able to visualize once the week's complete, pretty much a good way to simplify it, right? You're going to be able to see all the week's progress and if this played out or not. Okay, so overall, we're bullish. We're breaking to the upside of this range, which is great. This was kind of tough to tell where it was going to go because we were bouncing. Price action is more or less sideways here. We have key resistance at one area, key support at one area. This is a range. The safest way to play that would be to wait for a break of the range. Obviously, we wanted a bullish break because the higher time frame suggests it's a very bullish trend. We saw that. Here's the higher low, and now we're looking to continue to the upside. This also, I labeled this level here because this is actually an interesting level. On the higher time frame, this is a previous range. Right? All the way back a few months ago, this was a range. Price action was dramatically ranging in this area, bouncing off this level of resistance, bouncing off support here, and now we're clearly in that zone, and it has the characteristics of a strong bullish trend, right? So what's the most likely scenario? It's going to continue into this range, the top of the range here, this resistance, before we see any real sort of reaction. Okay, so that's kind of the idea here. This is the most likely scenario, and this is based on all the confirmations we've seen, and again, the trend. So the most likely scenario. This will happen first, probably before a drop, but let's talk about that for a second. So what needs to happen for us to consider the dollar bearish or neutral, something that we don't want to touch? And that would simply be a break back into this range, because if it falls back into the range, we know it could be in for more consolidation, and it's likely that it'll drop to this support, and then maybe we'll see a reaction from there. Okay, so these are the two scenarios that are likely to happen for the week ahead, either a continuation or break back into the range. And we'll see what happens. And a lot of this is going to, determine the movement we see on other pairs. So let's get into that. Let's jump over to AU, our first actual tradable pair. And we're going to do the same thing we did with DXY. Daily time frame, looking for the trend here. And then we're going to drop down to the 4 hour and see if we can kind of ride that trend. All right, so let's see where price action was. We were very bullish for a while here on AU, right? Characteristics of an uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. Clearly, we're seeing that. All right, we broke resistance here at our weekly, very strong level. And then we started consolidating, but with high volume, which is good and bad. Good because if you catch the volume, you can get a really large move. Bad, you can get caught off sides a lot. Okay, so that's kind of the problem with this huge range here. It took a while to play out. There were some good trades in here, but it wasn't that clear as to where price action had to go. We really wanted to see a break of this range, and we saw that here, right? So price action turned bearish. We broke support at the weekly, retested with the lower high, and now we have this descending wedge pattern. Okay, so we know we're bearish. So let's go to the 4 hour. Okay, this is bearish as well. So we can see, right, lower lows, lower highs. Here's that wedge that was highlighted on the daily. So let's see where we're at now. Okay, let's see how this wedge played out. Because typically in a wedge pattern, especially after in a large bearish trend, it can kind of react either way. It can be a strong reversal or it can be a continuation. So we kind of just highlighted here because we see price actions getting restricted, and we know that a move is imminent. Like we're going to see a large breakout at some point. So that was good to see. That's why we highlighted this pattern, and it broke to the downside. So a continuation. So we saw a breakthrough support. Other confirmations are here, which make this valid. Right? It drops to support or breaks support, drops to new support, pulls back to test broken support as new resistance, right at 0.74, which is where we're looking for a lower high. And it looks like it's forming that now. Okay, so this would be perfect to see. We have nice rejection here. We saw a nice little cross of minor structure here on the lower time frame. And now this is a couple confirmations away from a pretty good short opportunity. And we'll be targeting back down towards 0.73. Okay, so the next step when here with this one is I'll show you what to do, because this one is actually pretty close to entering in a trade. So we're consolidating here. This is where that lower high is that we're looking to reverse. So this is what we want to do. We're going to clean this up a little bit. We're waiting for a break of this with some strong bearish setups, meaning an engulfing evening star below this level. If it drops below, retests, bearish setup, bearish variation. So 3 strong candles in a row. That's good enough to enter at this current point. That would then confirm this 4 hour lower high and would then validate this trade. So that's what we're looking at right now. This is the most likely to happen. This short scenario is closer to triggering than this long scenario. Okay, so this is what we're favoring. This is why it's a blue path and not an orange path. Okay, the orange is, and on my analysis, the orange is always going to be the secondary, the secondary likely trade to play out. Okay, so let's talk about that one. This is the transition from a bearish trend to a bullish trend. Simply break back above resistance here, tested and confirmed support with a higher low. So this would be perfect. Then we could consider long scenarios into key resistance levels. Okay, but until we see that, all eyes on this lower support level. And this one looks pretty good. Very, very clean structure, classic break and retest. It looks pretty good. Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. Let's move over to AJ now. And we're going to do the same thing. Daily time frame. Let's jump up, find the trend, and then drop down. Okay, so much like we saw in AU, very strong bullish trend recently. Again, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. Again, just very strong bullish trend. And then massive consolidation. Still high volume, similar to like we saw in AU. These are pretty correlated, but even more volume here on AJ. So we can see huge range. Again, just more consolidation. And then we finally got a transition here. So this was a little bit of a higher low that was broken. Came back up, got the lower high, and then we were off from there. We broke that support level right at the weekly, retested, and then again, the thing just turned bearish. So we are newly bearish here on the daily still. Let's go to the 4 hour. Okay, again, very, very bearish. We could see we're breaking support levels, coming back up for these deep corrections, lower high, again, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and so on. So where are we going to go now? Because of this large volume and because of how big of a swing this was, this thing could still be bearish all the way up to 82.2. So that means price action could even pull back to here, reverse, and then drop for a new low. Okay, so that's very likely. So we just got to be patient here on AJ. The short scenario is definitely the most likely still. We have a lot of resistance we're about to get into. You know, we are at the 61.8 right now and recently broken structure. So it could reverse now as well. And again, we're looking for those, you know, bearish confirmations on the 1 hour. We want to see the MA cross, lower time frame transitions that we could then enter on and target down towards a new low, ideally towards the negative 27 fib level. And that would be a good trade. Really good risk reward. Would be a nice trend continuation. But we just got to wait on this. Just got to wait for those right confirmations. We're not going to get it in early because, again, it could pull back to here. And the thing here is if you're patient, this is the better trade. It's a larger risk reward, more pips to be, you know, had on this trade. So just be patient with it. Either way, it's going to be a good trade if we get that reversal. All right, so let's talk about what needs to happen for us to see AJ as bullish. That would need to be a transition through this lower high here. So essentially, I want to see price action break above 82.2. I'm going to break this level, see some higher lows, and then that's enough to consider this a transition on the 4 hour. And then we would look to target higher. This would be definitely a tighter trade simply because we have massive weekly resistance right here at 83.25. So we'll see if it plays out that way and we'll cross that bridge if it does play out in this fashion. And then we'll, you know, adjust our analysis, make trades on the opposite side of the trend here, and we'll see. Just got to wait, just got to stay patient, and could be a good trade. All right, so that's AJ. Let's move on to UJ. Same thing, guys. Daily time frame, grabbing the trend. This one's really easy to see, super bullish, right? As the dollar has been recently, super, super bullish. Not too much to cover here other than we got to watch out for this 110 support level. That's kind of holding this new higher low area that we recently broke through. So we tested that. It's confirmed support. That's all we need. Let's drop down to the 4 hour. Is there a question? Oh, welcome. Nice. Yes, welcome everyone who's new. All right, so UJ here on the 4 hour. Here is that higher low right at 110. So this is a massive level, pretty much the pivot level for this time frame. If price action's above it, we're favoring a bullish outlook. If price action drops below, we're favoring a bearish outlook. Clearly, we're above, and it looks like we're getting some bullish momentum right now. So this is potentially going to be a good trade. Ideally, I want to see this push a little bit higher. I want to clear this zone, clear these prior highs. You know, this could still be a fake out technically and could drop like just a rock right now. So we'll see. It could continue with consolidation. But ideally, like I said, we want to see it breach into this upper zone a little more, pull back, get some of those higher lows, and then we're taking longs all day long into resistance up here at 111.5. This would be a great trade. I mean, this would be phenomenal. So we'll see. Just a few confirmations away. This momentum's looking good, so it's likely. Definitely more likely than the bearish scenario, right? So for us to consider shorts, we want to see a break of 110, clean break, and a lower high below. I'll honestly accept nothing but a lower high below 110 because if you just look to the left, every time price action breaks below this, it fails to form a lower high. Every retest failed lower high, right? Over here too. This is a little bit of fake out, failed lower high here, never reversed. So I'm not going to get caught on that. You know, price action obviously is sensitive in this area. I want to see confirmation, want to see conviction through that lower high. And then we could target lower. All right, but for now, all eyes to resistance, targeting higher. Let's see how it plays out. Let's move on to EJ. Same thing, guys. Very methodical, up to the daily time frame. We know we really have a very defined set of things we're looking for, so we don't need to get too complicated. We're just breaking down price action here. So let's grab the trend from EJ. What's going on with this guy? We've been bullish for a while. Super, super strong trend. Clean reversal here. Kind of some sort of exaggerated head and shoulders. Either way, clean reversal. Higher high. Then we started getting lower highs. Break of that level right at the weekly. Then huge bearish momentum. Came back up. Tested with a lower high. And now we're newly bearish on EJ. So let's see if this trend's going to continue. Let's drop to the 4-hour. Okay. And here we are on the 4-hour. So this one kind of reminds you of AJ, right? It's got a lot of room, a lot of volume, a lot of room to run. Could kind of go either way. But let's kind of play it as if we want to ride the trend, right? That's going to be the best trade scenario. That's going to be the most conservative and, just the most likely overall. Trend continuation is always the most likely if you can catch it at the right spot, right? So we're currently at resistance right at 130. We are consolidating right here, which isn't a great sign. You usually want to see price action rocket off a support or resistance level. That's how you know it's really strong. But we're consolidating here, so not the best sign, but still could drop. So because this is kind of the pivot level, ideally I want to take a short after I can confirm this consolidation as kind of a lower high right here, that resistance has respected price action, and now we're headed lower. So that would be nice. What this would look like on a lower time frame entry, because it's kind of screwed up right now, I would like it to look like this ideally. So disregard those for a second, those other lines. I want price action to kind of just do this. Just completely break this right here and even give us a lower time frame retest or a bearish variations. So if that happens, then I'll take a short. Okay. But until that happens, we got to let it do its thing. Let me just undo that, clean that up. Okay. So now we're back on the 4-hour until we see price action start to push lower again. We need to see a little more bearish conviction, and then we could drop time frames and start looking for entries. Okay. But what needs to happen for us to go long? So honestly, price action needs to jump to the upside right now. We need to boost into this zone, right? We need a little bit of a rally, pull back, higher lows, and then we can start targeting resistance. Okay, this isn't the cleanest setup this week. Definitely just got to be cautious with this one. You don't want to get caught off sides on this, because either way it goes, it's going to run quite a bit. Definitely over 100 pips either direction. So really just want to wait for this to kind of finish what it's doing, and then we'll catch a trade on it. Okay, so that's EJ. And I'm going to wrap this up with gold. And unfortunately, guys, we're still here on the daily time frame because we're not yet seeing what we want to see. But let's talk about this for a second. So we have been bearish for a while. Right? We reached over here. We were super bullish, hit the high right at 20, just over 2070, and then price action dropped. Okay, we had key support at 1800, massive rejection from there. So 1800 was kind of the pivot level, right? As we were above that, we we're pretty much generally bullish, looking for reversals off 1800. But then once we broke below, we were generally bearish. So we had a nice break here, retest, nice lower high, and then it dumped all the way to the monthly down at 1675. We got a double bottom, and then it went bullish from there. But if you look at this whole bit of price action here, this is still a lower high, right? This is still kind of in a downtrend. Okay, but so it's still lower high. We saw massive rejection from there, but now we're consolidating, which is why we've been on the daily for a while. When we've been seeing this type of consolidation, you can't do much unless you're a scalper or you're on a lower time frame catching these moves. There's not much you can do here. This has not chosen a direction. This is more or less a pullback and not even a clean one. There's some gaps here, some large wicks. So there's fight going on between buyers and sellers. So really not what you want to see. However, nice rejection off this weekly. So that's a good sign, right? But is it going to follow through with that rejection? So now we're at 1800. We're just going to wait until this either breaks bearishly or breaks bullishly. And we want to confirm that lower high below 1800. And then it shorts all day long. This looks pretty good right now. This is a nice evening star. The gaps kind of suck. The MA kind of stalling here sucks. But all in all, Still could be a lower high. We could be a few confirmations away from a nice short opportunity, so we'll see. But just keep in mind, this is the daily, so it's going to take a little while. If we are lucky, we'll see something play out midweek. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. And to go bullish here, again, we need to see a break of this weekly at 1825, higher low above, and then we could say gold's officially bullish again. Okay, so yeah, sometimes it sucks when price action consolidates on certain pairs. You got to just jump up to higher time frames. Can't force it. If it's not doing anything, you can't force a trade that's not there. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's all I got for you. For you all, I covered DXY, AU, AJ, UJ, EJ, and gold. And again, as Angelo covered in the beginning of the session, you can find these analyses, which are active charts, in the Telegram and Discord. And you know, they're pretty valuable all week long. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys. I'm gonna pass it off to Angelo. Thank you guys. And yeah, happy trading.
All right, cool. All right, I'll go ahead and share up. See, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to post up in the chat as always. We'll get off of this. We'll get onto here. All right, so I'm just gonna go back and look at DXY really quickly. I haven't actually looked at this too much. So as we can see, this thing has been pretty freaking bullish. Let's see. Nice trim. Thanks, man. I did get a nice trim. All right, let's see. We've got weekly time frame. So DXY is testing this serious resistance level right now, this 93 area. But, you know, if I were to analyze this from the weekly, I see we got a spinning top. You know, we're at the top here, so could potentially reverse. But as we go down to the daily time frame, we are sort of forming this wedge up here as well, which this thing could fall out of, something like that. But until we start to break trend, even on this lower time frame, so we got the 4 hour right here, still clearly very bullish, all the way down to the 1 hour time frame. 1 hour is looking a bit sloppy, but we are in a little bit of an uptrend after we broke the resistance right here. So DXY is pretty much bullish, but we are at this like serious resistance level, which if it does reverse from is obviously gonna be pretty major here. You know, we're gonna see a big move after this wedge breaks. You know, could it be something similar to this? Yes. I mean, look at previously, every single time price has been in this zone that I have marked off. We have this level was seen as resistance. This was seen as support. Going back over here, we were seen as support. Nothing really right there. But then we could see back here, we have all these touches where price just pulled out of back in 2016. So this thing could potentially move, you know, very aggressively off the level. But for now, it's showing signs of being strong, of forming, you know, higher highs and higher lows.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's go down to NZD USD first. Let's just clear this up a little bit. Let's just start on the weekly. So for my analysis inside of the Telegram, you guys will see I'm only really looking at two time frames. I'm looking at the weekly time frame and the 4 hour time frame. I'm not really looking at any other time frames other than that because I'm getting everything I pretty much need from these two time frames. So on the weekly, I have this level marked right here. We have resistance, resistance, support, 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 and then resistance. So price, every time it's come into this 6-9 area, 6-8-9, it either reverses, you know, if it's looking at it as support, or resistance, it's pushing to the downside. So we're finally getting back into that area. If we look at last week's candle, so the one thing I'll do is I'll look for my level, and then I'll just look at last week's candle. We'll just see how it's forming. We can clearly see last week spiked down. I'm just gonna take some of this off. We can see by this wick right here, price finally spiked down into this area, hit 68800. So we were kind of waiting on this. If you look at the last few weeks analysis, I was waiting for price to finally hit this liquidity zone because inevitably we were going to test that, since previously price has tested that. Give me 1 second. We'll get everybody in here so it's a party.
Always
So
nobody
what I'm
dropped
looking
off.
at, what I'm looking at for this week is considering how these candles are forming. I look at the wicks to the downsides, telling me that a lot of sellers exhaustion. So the sellers are trying to push this down. Buyers are stepping in, saying we're not, going to let this thing push down. Coming down to the 4 hour now, this is where it gets interesting. Obviously the 4 hour is very bearish. So the 4 hour time frame has been forming a downtrend ever since this support level all the way up here had broken 71500, right about in that area. So we've been forming these lows, lower high, then retesting these lows, retesting lower high, and then pushing a bit lower. That was that spike down last week. So we're starting to just range right here, and then we finally get this lower high, this spike down, and then this is where we're currently at. So last week, going into the week, we were waiting for price. This is where we were on last week's Sunday Market Blitz. We were expecting price to push down, right, for the week, but I wasn't going to enter until I saw some sort of retest, right? So price just came out the gate, pushed right to the downside. If you had already been in on this in this area, then you were good. You were already in the trade, you were fine. But considering when we were looking at this on the session, we were down in this area. I didn't want to necessarily short this right here, have like a 70 pip stop loss. The targets weren't good. Even if we were a little bit more aggressive with it, 50 to 100. So it was about, you could have got about a 2 to 1 if you just short it there. But I just chose not to go in there. I was kind of waiting for it to come back. And then as you can see, it came down, hit the target. And then now it's exactly where I kind of wanted it to get to last week. So I'm just going to take this off. So pretty much what I'm looking for is prices in our zone. It's retesting previous resistance. It's starting to slow up a bit. If we were to actually go down to the lower time frame, we can see this is a very weak trend right here, trying to push to the upside. It's getting weaker and weaker. So this is definitely a potential sell, potential sell area. We've got our trend line. Clearly, it's in a downtrend. So we've got a couple confirmations here. If we were to fib, bring on the fibs, we're right at this 70, 61.8 area. So definitely have like multiple confirmations. So, if you did want to short this, I'm personally not, just because I'm in some other trades, but this would be sort of the short idea, to target at a minimum back to these lows. You could really put stops a little bit tighter, right around this area, or as tight as you want it to go, even down to here, really, because we know if price breaks this zone, we don't even want to be in the trade. So this is the short idea, right now, to then target down here, even lower. If we bring the fibs back on, if this thing does push to the low, you'll then start to target for that next lower low. Now, if price starts to break this trend line, it's going to start to shift trend, and ultimately this weekly time frame, which we were just looking at, is going to then head back to the upside, potentially back up to all the way back up to this upper zone, the 73 100 area, all the way up there, which is totally possible. So on the 4 hour, if this trend line breaks, if we get a lot of bullish momentum to start the week, then we're just going to simply wait for that first retest. And the reason I have this marked right here, this zone, this level at about 7,000. First of all, 7,000 obviously is a psychological number as well. But just looking at this previously, this was resistance, support, and then focusing more on this area, we can see this was resistance. Price fell off this area. Price jumped off this area. Resistance, support, and then resistance. So definitely a strong zone right here. So if price does manage to get up in this area and break it, as soon as it retests this, I'm going to go long on that. So that's NZD, USD, looking for shorts right now. And then if it does break, we're going to go long. Let's look at USEF next. This is a trade that was given out last week and just ranged for the entire week. Let's start on the weekly. So weekly time frame, we've got our two levels placed Mainly the one we're going to focus on is this level right here. And this is just based on zooming out. For the swing trading, make sure you're always zooming out. Don't be so, huddled in. Got to see the whole picture here. So obviously we don't necessarily need to go this far back, but just shows how relevant this kind of area has been for a long time. We've got the support here, support here, support here. And then more recently, we had a little bit of a fall off from this level acting as resistance. And now we're back in that zone. We're retesting this area. Now, one thing on this is we do have this bearish engulfing. So 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had this huge bearish engulfing candle, also like a tweezer top. So candlestick analysis is telling us that this is a bearish signal. And then last week we just had this doji form after it tried to push up and engulf this previous candle. So to me, that's saying price is primed to move to the downside. But as I kind of look at this with like a different perspective, this entire little like formation right here could be a flag on the lower time frame. We had this big push up, a lot of bullish volume. So let's go down to the lower time frame and just kind of take a look and see. So coming out of the 4 hour, this doesn't look like a flag. It's pretty sloppy considering we had those wicks push to the upside. It kind of takes away that idea. But looking at price in this zone right here, I have this level marked. So this orange zone, we have resistance right here, and then we have support right here, resistance right here, and then this is where we're currently at. So last week just range, this looks super sloppy. We had entered on the call based on this being retested, break of support right here, little double top, and then price ended up pushing up. We nearly got stopped out on this last week, and then now we're just kind of, right where we are. We're right kind of near our entry. We had our entry right here at 91830, and we're about 17 pips away from that right now. So I'm currently still in the trade. I'm going to manage it. If I start to see a little bit of a break of this level, then I'll probably look for just to get out of this, considering how long I've actually been in the trade. But I am looking for, based on that weekly, I am looking for reversal. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here. The weekly time frame, I'm seeing the doji form right there. So I am looking for a reversal. I am expecting a reversal candle. Remember, with the dollar, so if the dollar does end up falling out of this rising wedge right here and heading to the downside, then USEF will certainly, start to head to the downside as well. The dollar will weaken and everything like that. So I'm not, going to signal for you guys to enter at this moment. I am maintaining the trade, myself. And if this thing does start to break to the downside, then you can start to look to execute and to get in on this. But right now, it is kind of risky to get in at this point. So let's go next to GU. Let's bump up to the weekly time frame. So if you guys hopped on while I was going, just two time frames for the swing trading: weekly time frame, 4 hour time frame. That's all we're looking at. It's all we really need to look at right now. So looking at the weekly, let's just zoom in a little bit. You can see I have my levels marked here and up here. So we have the 141 700 area, then we have 133 500 area. You can see all of this resistance, resistance, resistance right here. So definitely a key zone. And then up here, obviously, acted as support and resistance multiple times. So price needs to make its move back to these areas. Looking at this trend, we are overall in an uptrend. Ever since June of 2020, this thing's just been pushing up, hasn't broken trend at all. Finally had this like pullback back to support right now. And then look how last week just formed. So price came into the support, large wick to the downside, closed. So buyers stepped in after sellers pushed this thing to a very low point, and it respected the support level. So coming down to the 4 hour, this thing looks totally different. Keeping in mind that the weekly time frame, that this is just a wick. On the 4 hour though, it certainly just looks like a downtrend. We're just forming lows, lower high, lower low, retest of the low, and then we had this next lower high, and then this is where we're currently at. So if we just want to trade with the trends on this 4 hour time frame, this would most certainly be the opportunity. This would be a short opportunity right now. We're retesting resistance right here. This is some 4-hour support that I've marked, now turned into resistance. We came up into this area, rejected it, and then we had another rejection right there. So I'm personally gonna enter a little trade on GU right now. Now, what happens with this is if price manages to, I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. If price manages to break this trend and break this resistance level up here, this is another 4-hour support level, then we are officially going to be looking for buys. So that's why I have my two ideas marked. We've got idea number one, which would be to just short right now. First target is going to be at 135,750, and then next target, if we were to actually bring on our fibs, would be much lower. It would be to here, 1 through 5 area. So we would have a decent trade there. Good risk reward, 2.7 for 1%, get 2.7%. So decent trade there. So that's why I'm taking it. Definitely could swing trade this to the downside, and then if it doesn't respect this zone, if it starts to push up, if the dollar doesn't reverse or the dollar does start to reverse, starts to break to the downside, like we were talking about with that wedge, then GU will start pushing up. And then at that point, that's when we'll look for that buy. So this trade is really in line with the dollar continuing to push to the upside. So we'll see what happens. The dollar is definitely in a rather interesting zone right now. Next, let's go over to USD CAD. Let's bump up to the weekly time frame. So weekly time frame on USD CAD, as we can see here, this thing has been pushing down for a minute ever since June 2020, as we all know. We formed some support levels, broke it, retest as resistance, form support, retest as resistance. Then now look where we're currently at. We're in a rather interesting area. A couple weeks back, in this area, we were talking about potentially reversing right here at 1243. As you can see, price did not reverse. It ended up continuing to push up to the upside, ultimately to find a better potential area for reversal. And then now, this is where we are currently at. So we're currently at 126. Last week we formed this large wick candle to the upside. So we are respecting this zone, quite a bit. Obviously, last week's candles very bearish. I wouldn't expect at this point price to surge too much following that type of candle. Coming down to the 4-hour, we can clearly see the 4-hour is in that uptrend. Was pushing to the upside, came back. So I'm not going to short this thing right away, just based on that wick. This is what that wick actually is. What I more want to see is I want to see price start to form more bearish structure. So I want to see price break this 1256 area. And as we can see, price push down. Now it's forming this rectangle pattern. So it's a continuational pattern. So we'll most likely now break out of this and then push to the downside. And then when it does, we'll just look for a simple little break and retest, and then short this thing. So I'm not too, bullish on this, even though price action has been bullish. I'm more based it on this weekly time frame. The weekly definitely has been overall more bearish than bullish for quite some time. So if we can get in on this and this thing does start to push, then we'll obviously get a huge move. But I'm just not going to get it on it yet. I want to see some more conviction. I don't want to be too early to the party here. So last, I'm just going to bump on to GJ. This is a very interesting kind of analysis. I've got multiple ideas on this one, but just looking at the weekly, we can clearly see the weekly. This is a high point right here. Let's go back here. So this is a high point right here. We have support, we have resistance right here. And we're just kind of in the middle. We're in no man's land. So I have this other level placed down here. This one's very clear to me. We have resistance all along this area. 1 second. So we have resistance all along this area, support all along this area. So when price comes in this area, something goes down, buyers step in, sellers step in, push this thing in one direction. We could see price searched for this area. We tried to reach this zone, but didn't exactly hit it on the nose, which is okay. But like, look how last week's price action formed. This large wick. This has me weary for taking shorts for sure. But on the 4 hour and even the daily, if we did want to bump up to here, daily is clearly very bearish. Forming lows, lower highs. 4 hour time frame as well, very bearish, forming these lows, lower highs. And now we're in an area where we could take a potential short. We could take a potential short opportunity. So just like these other pairs, I have two ideas for these. We could either short it right now. We just got like an evening start of form. We have this trend line, so it's respecting the trend line. We are also testing this previous support level now as resistance. So multiple confirmations, multiple confirmations. If we were to fib this as well, I'd probably even adjust this, put it up here. We can see we're testing right in some of our fib areas if we did want to use that sort of as a another confirmation. So this could be a trade that just plays out early in the week, just starts to push to the downside, ends up down here for the week, or based on how this wick is forming, this wick, it looks really ugly. We could see a reversal. Now only look for a buy if we get a clear break to the upside. So we break the trend line right here. We break out a trend. We break all this resistance right here. And I'm even going to adjust this and bring this down a little bit more. If we break all this, we get a retest. Then I'm going to look to buy in this zone, 152, 550. Yeah, that's 71%. 152, 550. And then all we're going to do is target this previous high, target all the way back up into that weekly resistance zone. So GJ is definitely looking is one of the clear pairs for me this week. Coming back onto GU, it's very similar to GJ. They move, they're correlated pretty closely. So this is going to be play out very similar, but that's also one that I see clearly. NU, obviously, I'm already in NU right now, so we'll see how this one ends up playing out. And then USEF is one that I'll most likely end up exiting because of the fact that I'm already in USEF and now I'm taking some other trades that are kind of like hedging it. They're in other directions. If USEF starts to push up, these other trades will most likely start to push down. I'll cut USEF as my loser and I'll let the other trades kind of run out. And we talk about that in inside the program in this new aggressive risk strategy. If you guys are in the signals, I post videos in there talking about kind of how I'm looking at things, and it's a little bit more in depth. It's not very basic, but I'll continue to put videos out so you guys can understand, what's going on with that. That's pretty much it for analysis wise this week. If you guys are inside of Telegram, which you guys all should be, we are doing a little bit of a giveaway. We started to give away some posters. So if you want to enter in on the giveaway, the instructions are in there. I'll post it up again. Some of the posts from earlier today did obviously get pushed down because of all the analysis, but I'll just go ahead and do a little share here and we'll look at the Telegram. So earlier today, we'll just do a little recap. We had the giveaway. So all you got to do, subscribe to the YouTube pages, join the Funded Trader Telegram. We'll give away 3 posters. Some of the people that won last time, we couldn't ship to, or for whatever reason, give them cash. So we do have PDFs of them as well. So we're just sending those. But we'll try our best to accommodate you, depending on where you're at. And then other than that, obviously the signals will get started for this week. We'll post some. The results are constantly updated. So just go ahead and come into the pinned message at the top if you do want to see the results from like the previous week, if you guys are interested. There's a lot of signals that get given out in there. So I'm just going to go in here real quick. There's about 10 per day. I have advised people to use demo accounts when they first sign up. maybe formulate some sort of strategy. Like I'm only going to trade major pairs. I'm only going to trade indices. I'm only going to take trades at certain times of the day, whatever. If you did want to try to just get it on every single trade, more power to you, but definitely try to create some sort of strategy around it. We've had people hit us up and say, "Hey, I've blown my account with your signals," and then we have other people hit us up and say, "Hey, I've made a ton of money with your signals." So it's all about how you kind of strategize around using it. The whole idea behind it was we wanted to give trades throughout the entire day because people are obviously in all different time zones, wherever. So just don't overtrade. Try to do your best not to do that. And then we had this video came out earlier today. What is a prop firm? Simplest explanation with one of our partners. So definitely go check this out if you guys are trying to get into prop trading. You don't know, what prop trading is. He goes over all the details about everything like that. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. So I see one last question. Any thoughts on Euro JPY? So we already covered that. So go onto YouTube. I'm gonna post this in about like 10 minutes or so, and then we'll post the replay. And like Nick said earlier, best of luck to all y'all this week, and we'll be updating you throughout the week.
Yeah, guys, it's a good week. Got some good setups, and yeah, it's all laid out in front of us. So have a good trading week, guys. We'll be here if you need us. Hit us up on Discord, Telegram. Try not to do Instagram. The DMs get packed. But yeah, this will be a replay for you guys, so you guys can catch it if you join late. You have
Yes,
a vid
sir.
on forming a strategy.
Forex League to the moon, right?
That's right, all and beyond.
And beyond. All right, everyone. Have a nice week. Thanks for joining up. Peace out.